put it on my iTunes, I put it on my phone and Bluetooth it right through in my car. So, but I still, I don't know. I still have to have that physical copy. I guess it's just the generation that we come from. I mean, that's how we roll. So I love looking at it.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because I remember with me, it was like, you know, I always loved getting a CD and like, that or really had an appreciation. It's that first time opening the CD and you sit there, like me, I'd read all the liner notes, like who did what, where was it recorded, and you know, like who'd they thank? Who are these people that they're thanking?
That was a big
one,
like,
the
thank yous.
Yeah, like, and as I started getting more into the industry, it was cool because I'd be like, in the thank yous, I'd be like, oh, I know that person. Oh, that, you know, that's a great engineer. Oh, that's a mastering engineer I've always looked up to. And, like, it became this cool of a scavenger hunt at that point. Like, find cool credits of people that I either looked up to or admired or knew personally, you know?
Right. To me, that was one of the best. That's the first thing I looked at was the thank yous. Yeah, you got the new CD, you made sure all the same people were still in the band, you read the thank yous, and then you went right to the lyrics. I mean, that's just, that's how I do it.
That's a scary thing with industrial bands because it's rarely the same band from CD to CD.
Right. No doubt about that. Speaking of industrial music now, the other day, like, my show gets rebroadcast on Stone Chrome Radio, so I just want to touch on this a bit because, of course, you have an element of industrial and it's metal. It's a little bit of death metal I hear in it.
Sure.
She was looking for new ideas for shows, and I said, well, how about an industrial show? And she felt that it wasn't good for like a Saturday morning because it was more popular on the West Coast than where we're at. And I don't necessarily feel that way. Maybe it's because I'm very into industrial and that electronic element in my rock and metal music. I mean, what I don't see it being restricted, but do you find that to be the truth, that it's more West Coast or?
No, that hasn't been my experience at all. And I mean, you know, I travel all over the place, and I think industrial. I think every city out there has its little industrial scene, and it's awesome because, you know, you find that one like Goth Industrial Club in the town, and you go there and you may not know a single person, you may have never been there, but you kind of feel at home. You know the music, you recognize the clothes, everybody kind of has the same vibe, and like this happened to me recently in Phoenix. I went to a club that I didn't know anybody. I just needed to get out of the hotel room for a bit, and it was like you just feel comfortable. You're part of that scene, which is I hate that term, but it really is. Industrial has this community that's very strong, very loyal, very dedicated to supporting the music and the artwork and the fashion that they enjoy and that they love as part of that culture. And, you know, mainstream, it touches on the mainstream sometimes, but I feel that it's always been a steady underground, and it's always there. It doesn't really die out like a lot of fads do. You know, there's goth industrial clubs now, just like there were 10 years ago and 20 years ago.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and half of them are listening to the same music still, which is cool.
So, speaking of the West Coast, now your plans are to move out there to Los Angeles, correct?
Yeah, I'm personally moving out there right after this tour we're doing. I just, in addition to my own music, you know, to make a living, I work in the audio industry entirely. So, just on different sides of the glass, I'm either engineering and producing other people's music or working on my own. And there's a lot more opportunities for that out there. There's a lot of stuff we're starting to get into with film. There's talks of us eventually developing some of the concepts that we're doing now into an actual film at one point. So I kind of thought about it, and like I love Florida. I'm born and raised. I love Orlando, even though I'm originally from Boca. You know, I moved to Orlando originally in 2002. But it's become my home. You know, I like what's going on. There's a good local scene here. There's a good national as far as recording in studios and stuff, but it's just gotten to a point where I feel like I have better opportunities out there. So I'm not doing the cliche run off to to be a rock star, movie star, or whatever. I'm at a point where I have enough. I've worked enough in the industry that I have a good, solid support system, both professionally in the music industry as well.
I think I might have lost you. You still there? All right. Well, I'm gonna play a quick.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
yeah, you
cool.
broke. I lost you there for a second. I apologize about that. So
No worries. Basically, it's a good move for me because I have a good support system there, both personally and professionally. So it makes sense.
Right now, the band isn't going to now, go away. You're still going to operate 7 Factor. Now, are any of the band members coming, or are you going to work long distance?
And that's a great question, and we're absolutely not going away. We consider ourselves a global entity. It really doesn't matter where each of us lives on our own, and we travel so much anyways from where we do live, it almost doesn't matter. But, for example, I said Steve White from KMFDM did guitars on this album. He's in Seattle. We've worked with people in Berlin and London, and some of the band members are looking to move out there, but if they don't, it'll be a situation where just when the next tour is, we all kind of make sure we're in the same city at the same time to do some rehearsals and then go off and do what we do.
And that's another way the music industry has changed over the past, I would say, 10 or 12 years, is that you don't really need to be together to record. I mean, I recorded my last song that I recorded about 3 or 4 years ago that I actually released. I mean, I worked from here. The original bass player from Buck Cherry recorded in Los Angeles. So that's another way that the music industry is moving forward. And it's also a lot less expensive to record, and it's of course a lot easier to do it now with the internet and transferring files back and forth.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the way technology is, it allows for that to be extremely easy and doable, and there is no reason to be all living in the same city. I have some unpopular opinions kind of related in relation to local music scenes in general. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and I love local music. I love the fact that people start bands and they're rehearsing in the garage and they go play shows and this and that, and I love that happens. But there's still this mentality that is lingering from the mid-'90s where people think that you have to play locally, you have to be all in one city and play in your city and, quote unquote, pay your dues and, sell tickets for promoters and put money in their pocket instead of yours and not get paid to play and not, not be respected and not do a lot of things that, obviously if you're a new band, you got to kind of earn that respect, but at the same time, that system doesn't exist. Anybody feel free to correct me. I don't think any of the major labels are sending A&R guys to the local little bar to see what band is cool in town.
Right.
I don't think bands are being, quote unquote, discovered that way and signed that way. And I don't think, it used to be you start off locally, you build a local hype, that'll get kind of regional, and then your regional fan base will attract some attention, you start getting some press, and then some labels will start looking at you, and then you go national, and that was the only way to do that. I don't think labels are operating that way. I don't think that's the only way to be successful anymore. I don't think it's so easy with the internet to get your music out there and express to people, so I don't think that's a necessary step anymore. So I don't think local scenes are cool. I just don't think you have to think that way or have to be a part of one to be able to do that.
Right. I don't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I do 7 Factor full time. I do this 12 hours a day. We're constantly creating things that are effective a week later or 6 months later or a year later. We have a plan of what we're doing. But as a band, if you were to look at the reality of it, tomorrow will be our second show ever. Right. You know, our fourth show ever will be on stage with our friends and band that we love, KMFDM in Houston on Monday. You know, we didn't do that by being like, okay, well, we have to quote unquote pay our dues and play at the local bar 200 times before we can even think about doing a major tour.
Right.
You know, figure out what you want to do and work towards that, and figure out how other bands have done that, and let go of all the bullshit from the mid-'90s. You know, think outside the box of how things are now. You know,
I'm the biggest. I hate pay to play. I hate selling tickets. I did it once with my last band, and all the promoters, you got to watch who you're dealing with as far as, you know, younger bands coming up. Promoters are going to try to rip you off. They're going to try to take your ticket money. I don't like it. I think that if you're bringing a band to town, that they should be able to sell the tickets and you should promote it. And then if you want bands playing before it, you got to come up with it's not easy for a band to sell tickets. Like, there are bands that do it. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. They can operate however they want, but honestly, it's a pain in the ass. I mean, you're gonna get 50 tickets, and now you got another guy who's giving the same tickets away. Like, I would give the tickets away and just suck it up and pay it, and that's hurting the other bands that are trying to sell them, because they'll just come to me and get it for free.
Exactly, and. You know, being a promoter myself and being just at all sides of this, I get it. I see where they're coming. I see where all sides are coming from. You have the promoter that wants to bring this cool national in, and he probably has real good intentions about wanting to do it, you know. And in order to do it, you have to pay X amount of dollars that he's not going to be able to pay out of his pocket, because promoters are not the rich, greedy assholes that people think they are. Most promoters get into it because they love music and love being a part of it. You know, some of them might get corrupted and steered down the road. I want to think in my world, like, that's why people get into it. You know, they just have a love for it.
Right.
And they okay, well, how do I pay this X amount of $1,000? Well, I'll get a band, and they'll sell the tickets, and they'll be the new street team. They're going to be the street team for the show. And it also kind of, you know, promoters get a little jaded, because they're like, you know, every band wants to play at our club, and why should I let every band play? They don't promote it. They don't tell anybody. They're cocky, and they're entitled and feel like they should get paid, and nobody comes to see them, and we lose money. Let's get the bands that are really going to go out there and push it, and they're the ones that'll be the privilege to play, you know?
Right.
So I get that side of it, and then you have the newer bands that are like, oh, I get to open for whatever band, this national band, and that'll advance my career, so I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I'm going to sell tickets. So that's admirable. But the reality is that it doesn't help the bands at all. At this point, rarely do the local support on national shows really help the locals, because these are guys that they play all the time anyways. Usually they oversaturate their markets and their hometowns, and people know who they are. They're not showing up at 6 o'clock to see a band they can see for $5 the next week. You know, they're going to show up later, and they go to see the headliner that they want to see. So it's not really getting the exposure, and they're selling tickets to your friends. You know, most, like you said, a lot of them buy them themselves and give them out. And these guys, they're working their asses off, and they're not getting paid. Maybe $1 a ticket. Maybe each band member gets $5 at the end of the night, you know. The band that got booked got their X $1,000. The promoter probably took a chunk of that. The bar sure as hell made a bunch of money.
Right. That's who should be paying the headliner, is the guy selling the alcohol. And then, you know, you're getting the cover charge. They're getting it from every angle. And
sure,
that you know, if you're going to, like, we played with Bobaflex, and they were the headliner, and we played after them because we brought more people, and they wanted our fans to watch them. I was pissed off.
And I would be too, yeah. You know, because at that point,